What's up everybody, Fortexfiend here, and welcome back again to another video on SD Gundam G Generation Eternal. So for this video, this is going to be essentially it's like a guide or guideline to help you guys prioritize which pilots you should be using your SP conversion on. As we know, we're going to be getting that feature very, very soon in game, which allows us to strengthen our pilots who are not of the UR rarity. So that way they can give us a little bit more of a competitive edge against some of the harder stages, such as Eternal Road. Now, before I go ahead and get started, you know the drill. If you enjoy what you see on this channel, hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, like or dislike, and comment down below what your plans are and which pilot you're going to be converting. Now, before I get started with the actual list, I want to first give a big shout out to my boy Randy VK. I'll be leaving the link to his YouTube channel down below. He and I actually worked on this together, and the goal for this particular list is to give you guys a simple guideline. We don't want to overcomplicate it with numbers and having to like fine tune or dig and this and that, you know. No one wants that. No one wants that boring stuff. We just want it to be as simple as possible as to why you should be SP converting these pilots. And also, for full disclosure, a majority of this is going to be SSR pilots, as we know, because SSR pilots do have a lot more value than the SR or below rarity pilots. So just keep that in mind when you're going over this. We want to just make it super, super simple. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and start off with the suggested Gacha SSR pilots to SP convert. And yes, I did the Amuro meme smile face because why not, right? So the way that we went about this is that any of the SSR pilots that can essentially do twice of something, whether it's a chance step or a double support defense or a support attack, is the ones you want to go for. So you got Saurus, Harmonia, Zadiel Zalmfort, Saisachi, Rei, Knight Sazabi, Daguza, Chibity, Luna Maria, excuse me, Argo, and Deira. So these are going to be the ones that you want to go for in terms of the Gacha SSR, because they could do two of something that is very, very important in game, such as being able to attack again if they, defeat an enemy target, being able to double defense, or being able to double support, because that's always going to be a lot more helpful than a unit that can only do that once. There are specific caveats where you might want to go with a unit that doesn't have that functionality, but generally, especially with the harder stages, even with Master League, you want a unit that can do something twice. So this is going to be the Gacha SSRs that you should consider SP converting when that functionality comes out. All right, next we're going to move on to the suggested free SSR pilots to SP convert. Again, we're going to go with that same mindset. If a unit can do this twice, why not, right? A lot more value there. So we got Machu, we got RG, we got Musha Gundam for that double chance step. We got Anavolgato, Char Aznable, Sampo, and Knight Gundam if you want that double support defense. And finally, we got Katra, LPO, and Shuji if you want that double support. These are fantastic pilots because they are free. I know with Katra, we had to have that one particular event where you could earn him. I believe they're going to be bringing that back very soon. So for those of us that didn't get a chance to earn him, we could probably do it there. But he is these are generally a guideline for the free SSR pilots on which ones that's worth SP converting. Anytime you could do things twice, that is already value right there, which is why you want to go with these particular pilots. All right, we do have some honorable mentions for the Gacha SSR pilots to SP convert. The way that I went about choosing them is based on the skills that they have. Also, if they had a good stat, I would mention that. And also, if they had a tag that was very flexible, meaning nothing to like tag specific where there's not a lot of units, that's also something that I took into consideration. So in terms of your attackers, I got Dozel Zabi, I got Demizier, I got Angelo, and I also got Resin. The reason why I chose these four is, first of all, they're part of either Xeon or Neo Xeon. So that is a very, very flexible tag in terms of which mobile suit that you want to use for which stage you're going to be doing. And also, they all got really good skills, such as like attack burst and boost crit with Dozel. You got range boost and sway with Angelo, high speed and sway with Resin, and high speed and sway with Demizier. And then they each have like a offensive stat that they specialize in, which is, I would say is pretty high for an SSR unit. So like Dozel has high melee, Angelo has high range. So that is why I went ahead and chose those four. I know there's probably others that I could have mentioned, but these are the ones for me that stood out that I personally recommend you should consider SP converting, aside from the ones that you can like double, chance and all that. For the defensive pilots, we got Shin, we got Beside, and we got Karta. For Shin, self-heal and good defense, also part of the Zeon. For Beside, you got a self-heal, good defense and reaction. And for Karta, you have a self-heal and good defense. In terms of your defensive pilots, especially ones that can only defend once, you want to keep them alive. So at least for the next round, they could still be able to defend. So it kind of mitigates the whole being unable to double support defend, in my opinion. So this is the reason why I chose those particular Gacha SSR defensive pilots that don't have access to the double defense support, but they can heal themselves to kind of make up for it. And then finally, with your support, you got Jean-Luc Duval, because I went ahead and chose Jean because of the boost range and high speed, also the Zeon tag. And then we got Amy Zimbalist for the attack burst and boost range. Anytime a support unit, in my opinion, can boost the range of their weapon skills, extending it to one more space, that is always nice, because even if you decide to put them, let's say, in an attacker unit, you're giving them that maximum range, so then that way you can position a little bit easier and not worry too much about your support, so that way they can attack at maximum range, still be able to deal that support damage or debuff or whatever that is that they need, and also keep away from harm depending on their position. So these are the honorable mention Gacha SSRs that you should consider using the SP conversion feature on. And then finally, we have our honorable mention free SSR pilots to SP convert. This list is a little bit smaller compared to the Gacha because I really couldn't find too many good options, at least in my opinion. But going off of attackers, we got Ko Uraki and Nyan. The reason why I chose them is even though their stats are kind of subpar, they both have access to MP up and then some sort of an offensive trait such as attack burst or boost crit. Cole has EFSF, which is also good, and it allows him to be burst damage, from the get-go, which gives them a little bit more momentum when you are in combat. We also got Shalia Bull. He has high speed and sway. His awaken stat's pretty good, and he also has the Zeon tag. We got Shiko Sugai, who has high speed and attack burst. She also has good melee and is part of EFSF. For our defensive pilots, really, I only found value in low. And again, if you feel like I might have undermined a free SSR pilot that's defensive, let me know. But I went with low, even though Low's stats were just kind of average or slightly above average. He does have high speed and force guard. Force guard is always nice on a defensive pilot, and then also high speed for easier positioning. And then finally for support, it was kind of the same deal. A lot of the free support SSR pilots were just kind of outside of the ones that had the double support. But I went with Satan Gundam because Satan Gundam has both attack burst and boost range, so its support can be extended by +1 range. And then finally giving a little bit more DPS. That way you're dealing a little bit more damage. Even though with support, it's mainly more important to have that debuff afflicted, but having a little bit more attack is always nice. And now the question you're probably going to be asking is, what about SR pilots? Because you can get free SR pilots from the recruit. I'm not even going to mention the R or N or whatever the lower rarity pilots are, because I don't think they're necessarily worth it unless they're your absolute favorite. But for the SR pilots, Zaft pilots for that mission in Eternal Road, Neo Zeon, same deal, and then the development only Eternal Roads that lack either an UR or SSR pilot, and they're out there. For example, the Char's counterattack one, or even the G Gundam one, you're going to end up having to use some of those, lower rarity pilots. So if you're wondering, okay, I have some extra access to these SP conversions, which ones do I want to use them on in terms of these rarities? Those are the ones that you definitely want to consider. So hopefully this helps you guys out in preparing for this really awesome feature that gives a lot more value to the non-UR pilots, especially for those of you that are free to play or don't spend as much and don't pull in all the banners. This is going to be super helpful, so then that way those pilots can provide you a competitive edge when you're trying to tackle some of the harder content in the game. Again, if any of the pilots that I didn't mention are your favorites, go with your favorites, because most of all, the most important thing when we're playing these games is to have fun. But if you're looking for a guideline and you're unsure, this is the list that myself and Randy VK have compiled for you guys. Thank you guys again for watching. Stay tuned for the next video, and stay blessed, everybody.